Actor Peter O'Toole, who made his mark in 1962 playing T.E. Lawrence in Lawrence of Arabia, has died. He was 81 years old, and the actor passed away on Saturday, December 14th, at the Wellington Hospital in London after struggling with a long illness, his agent Steve Kennis confirmed to The Guardian. The Irish-born actor announced last year that he was leaving acting behind. And over the course of his career, he was nominated for 8 Academy Awards for his roles in Lawrence of Arabia, Beckett, The Lion in Winter, Goodbye, Mr. Chips, The Ruling Class, The Stuntman, My Favorite Year, and Venus. And he also won 4 Golden Globes, a BAFTA, and an Emmy. And he was the recipient of an honorary Academy Award in 2003. O'Toole survived by daughters Kate and Patricia and son Lorcan. And Hollywood took to Twitter to commemorate the icon. Ellen DeGeneres said, "Hollywood lost an icon yesterday. Peter O'Toole was one of the best. I'm so glad I got to meet him." Samuel L. Jackson tweeted, "I met Peter O'Toole backstage at a Soldier's play. Amazing talent and inspiration, R.I.P." And director Kevin Smith said, "I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star." The great Peter O'Toole said, "In my favorite year, he was both. R.I.P. Peter O'Toole." Joining us now is HuffPost blogger and movie buff John Farr, whose tribute to Peter O'Toole is up on the Huffington Post now. John, thanks for being here, and tell us why it is that you wrote this tribute.
Oh my God, I was so upset when I heard he'd passed. I was almost surprised how upset I was. I love this man. I loved him from the first time I saw him in Lawrence of Arabia. And yet he did so many other great films that people might not know about. I encourage everyone to see Beckett, where he goes up against Richard Burton, who was his good friend and partying buddy, 2 of the great acting titans of stage and screen. I do love My Favorite Year, which is one of his best comedic roles. But I just was heartbroken because it's the passing of an era.
And what kind of legacy do you think that he's left behind?
Oh, my Lord, how to begin to say that? I mean, he was brought up in the theater. He was trained in the theater. He had one of the most beautiful speaking voices I've ever heard on film. And he had a wonderful sort of mischievous style. He didn't do a lot of comedy, but I wish he'd done more because he was absolutely wonderful. I just think he was one of our finest actors. And I almost feel as if he was a bit wasted in terms of the roles that he did, particularly after the 1960s for various reasons. He did lose his beauty, his physical beauty. Because he was a partier, and he looked a little jagged and ragged once we hit the 80s. Didn't have enough great roles, but boy, when he did have a good role, he made the most of it.
And you say that you feel like he represents a different era in Hollywood. What do you changed from the heyday of his career?
Well, I mean, I think we have a lot of great actors out there, but a lot of the movies that we see today that are commercial films are not as dialogue-driven, as character-driven, as the great O'Toole films were. Sometimes the star is the camera, and the star is the inside of a computer, more than the actors themselves. And I think most contemporary film actors would admit that. I think theater today is struggling. So he comes from a different time. And part of the sadness is when you think of all his contemporaries, there are very few left. We have Albert Finney and we have Tom Courtenay, and I can't think of anybody else.